If you're like millions of Americans, you're constantly juggling work, life, and the endless to do list, often leaving you feeling stressed, sleepless, or simply a little off. But what if a simple solution could help you reclaim your calm and clarity? Hi, I'm Monica from AlgaeCal, and today I'm joined by Laura Pizzorno, author of Healthy Bones, Healthy You, as we dive deep into Magnesium Relax, AlgaeCal's new multi-nutrient formulation designed to help you thrive. Laura, thank you for being here.
You're so welcome. It's a delight to get to do this.
Absolutely. And so we're just going to get right into it. Magnesium. It's a mineral that most of us are fairly familiar with, but perhaps don't fully understand just how vital it is to our overall well-being. To my understanding, magnesium acts as a cofactor in over 300 enzyme systems, with some sources even suggesting over 600. It's clearly a major player. And so, while we don't have time to go through all of them, Laura, can you maybe briefly describe some of magnesium's fundamental roles in the human body, especially those directly impacting our sleep, mental clarity, and
Sure.
stress response?
It is close to 600 enzymes. That's what they now think. We can think of magnesium as the essential spark plug, okay, for our body's engine. It helps kickstart hundreds of enzymes. And you can think of enzymes as little tiny workers inside our cells that make everything happen. Magnesium helps your body turn the food that you eat, carbohydrates, fats, and proteins, into energy. It's also necessary for digesting food and absorbing nutrients. It helps regulate insulin, the hormone that manages our blood sugar and gets our sugar into our cells where we use it. This means that magnesium can help your cells use sugar more effectively, which is important for blood sugar control. Magnesium is essential for a healthy heartbeat and keeping a steady heartbeat rhythm. It also helps relax your blood vessels, so it can lower your blood pressure. Magnesium helps calm inflammation in your body, and it increases levels of glutathione, which is a very powerful antioxidant that protects our cells, and it also gives immune cells a boost. Then, of course, there's bone health. Okay, half of the magnesium in the body is stored in our bones, and it's absolutely essential for building new bone tissue and for making collagen, a protein that keeps bones strong. It also helps activate vitamin D so that you can absorb calcium effectively. And finally, magnesium is absolutely crucial for sleep, mental clarity, and stress management, which we'll be talking about more today. It activates GABA receptors in your brain, which have a calming effect that helps reduce anxiety and promotes deep, restful sleep. And at the same time, it helps balance out glutamate, which is a stimulating neurotransmitter, so that you can stay focused and alert without feeling overwired. Magnesium is involved in so many critical processes. You can see why not getting enough can have a really big impact on how you feel every day.
I mean, what I'm hearing, simply put, is that magnesium is important. We absolutely need it. And I'm hearing check, 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 because it's not just little things too. And so, Laura, can you just explain how chronic stress in particular specifically impacts our magnesium stores? And perhaps maybe more critically, how can low magnesium in turn potentially exacerbate feelings of stress and anxiety? It really seems like a vicious cycle.
Yeah, it is a vicious cycle for sure. You see that in the research. They talk about it as this is a vicious cycle, and then they have a little diagram showing all the biochemical actions that cause it. And they repeat each other. I mean, they influence and encourage and repeat each other. So chronic stress increases our secretion of cortisol and the catecholamines, which are our fight or flight hormones, adrenaline and noradrenaline. And all these stress-induced hormones increase our needs for magnesium. And here's why. Stress, whether it's physical or psychological, triggers a cascade of events in the body. The hypothalamus, which is a region in the brain, releases corticotropin releasing hormone, or CRH, which stimulates the pituitary gland. And the pituitary gland then releases adrenocorticotropic hormone, or ACTH. And ACTH travels to the adrenal glands, prompting them to release a lot of cortisol. So that's essentially what's the three steps that are occurring. Magnesium counteracts this process in three different ways. First, magnesium lessens the release of ACTH from the pituitary. And since ACTH is what stimulates cortisol production, okay, decreasing ACTH lowers cortisol. Secondly, the release of cortisol promotes what's called oxidative stress. Lots of free radicals get produced. which also increases our need for magnesium because, as we talked about earlier, magnesium is the cofactor for the enzymes that produce and recycle our most important endogenously produced antioxidant, glutathione. And thirdly, magnesium is also the cofactor for an enzyme called tryptophan hydroxylase. This is the enzyme that converts tryptophan to 5-hydroxytryptophan, or you may see it as 5-HTP. 5-HTP is important because it's the precursor for our body's production of serotonin. And serotonin is our feel-good, relaxed neurotransmitter. So when serotonin binds to receptors in the brain, this dampens the activation of the whole hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis, the whole thing, and stops. It shuts down the initiation of the whole stress response. And lastly, a lack of serotonin causes depression, anxiety disorders, and insomnia because serotonin is then the precursor for our production of melatonin, our nighttime, relax, go to sleep, and repair hormone. So you can see why without an adequate supply of magnesium, our ability to counteract stress is completely undercut. A vicious cycle develops because stress not only increases our needs for magnesium, but also increases us to lose more magnesium than normal in urine. And let me explain how that works. So only about 1% of the magnesium in our bodies is in our bloodstream. 60% is in our bones, and 39% is inside our cells, being used to activate all those magnesium-dependent enzymes that we talked about that run our cells' metabolism. When stress increases our needs for magnesium, magnesium shifts from inside our cells to what's called the extracellular space surrounding our cells so that it can be accessible for use to lessen the effects of stress. But when more magnesium appears in the extracellular fluid, the kidneys increase their elimination of magnesium to bring levels back down to the amount that would normally be there. And the end result is that we lose magnesium more, a lot more. Magnesium gets shunted out in urine. So this is why stress rapidly depletes magnesium from our cells, after which we draw magnesium out of our bones, promoting osteoporosis. So it's certainly a vicious cycle.
Absolutely. So when we're stressed, our body is making it more accessible, but because it is, we're flushing it out.
Right. And also we're using it up faster because magnesium is involved in all those things that lessen the stress response. So we're burning it up faster and we're eliminating it more quickly.
It's so fascinating. And I mean, at the end of the day, it's clear that it's crucial for good health. It's crucial for bone health. And so I think the big question for many is, am I getting enough? And so Laura, just how common is magnesium deficiency today?
It's very common in the US. Of average adult intake of magnesium is not just below the RDA. It's less than what's called the EAR, which is an amount that's supposed to be enough for approximately half the population. And we're not getting even that. Americans are not even consuming that much. 48% of Americans are consuming less than the EAR for magnesium. And also the RDA is inadequate. We're supposed to, we're told to get 1,200 milligrams of calcium every day. And the optimal balance between calcium and magnesium is 2-to-1, which means if you need 1,200 milligrams of calcium, you need 600 milligrams of magnesium to balance it. But for some reason, the RDA for magnesium is 420 milligrams for men and 320 milligrams for women. Okay, so that's not enough. And actually, you may need more magnesium than even the 600 milligrams because chronic stress depletes magnesium. A lot of us are dealing with chronic stress. Diabetes and kidney disease cause us to eliminate more magnesium in urine. Loop and thiazide diuretics also increase our loss of magnesium. Gastrointestinal problems, okay? Crohn's, IBD, IBS, gastric bypass surgery, all of these interfere with our ability to absorb magnesium. PPIs taken to manage GERD prevent us from absorbing magnesium. Drugs that are prescribed for autoimmune disorders like lupus and eczema and rheumatoid arthritis and psoriasis, okay, even some eye conditions, all these medications increase our elimination of magnesium. And lastly, as we age, our ability to absorb magnesium decreases and our excretion of it increases. So simply getting older increases your needs for magnesium.
So what I'm hearing here is we're not eating enough food sources and just not enough in general. There are certain conditions that impair that, plus the medications, and then of course age, potentially needing more. And so I've heard a little bit about maybe the agricultural impact as well when it comes to food. Can you maybe highlight the reason why?
Sure. So conventional farming techniques use what are called high phosphate fertilizers. And these fertilizers do not replenish the minerals in the soil. And they also contain phosphate, which binds to any magnesium that might have managed to escape and still be in the soil. And they produce insoluble complexes, magnesium phosphate complexes, so that we can't absorb. So we can't absorb the magnesium in them. The modern diet is largely composed of conventionally grown foods that are processed, okay? And processing techniques further cause an additional loss of minerals of up to 80%. So if we manage to get any magnesium at all, we eliminate it there. And then, we're not eating the vegetables that contain magnesium. Okay, the average American only consumes about 1.5 cups of vegetables per day. The recommended amount, which is too low, is 2 to 3 cups. We're not even getting that. And optimally, we should be consuming about 7 to 11 servings of vegetables and 2 servings of fruit a day. We don't. And then, the modern food supply is contaminated with pesticide residues, which increase the production of free radicals in the body, and we need glutathione to combat those, and we need magnesium to make glutathione, and we have fluoride in the water supply. Fluoride binds to magnesium, so we can't absorb it. And then we use a bunch of medications that impair our ability to absorb magnesium or increase it. Antacids impair our ability to absorb magnesium, not just proton pump inhibitors, but antacids, period. Antibiotics, and even oral contraceptives like the pill.
Still need to fill that gap. And so, I mean, you're so knowledgeable about so many things and especially are aware of these things too. And so, for people that are not, or just like, coming into being aware, it can be frustrating. You think you're doing everything right and you're still, missing these nutrients and needing these gaps to be filled. And so I'm going to move on a little bit. We know how prevalent this deficiency now is because you've explained it, but what are some common signs and symptoms that one could expect? If a listener is hearing this today and they're like, is there something I need to be looking out for? What would they be?
Muscle cramps are one of the most common symptoms. Fatigue, headaches, high blood pressure, problems falling asleep, problems staying asleep, waking up frequently during the night. Even, fatigue and energy, because magnesium is required for our ability to metabolize carbohydrates. So deficiency can make insulin resistance worse. If it's severe, you can get an irregular heartbeat, neurological symptoms like involuntary muscle spasms, loss of appetite, nausea, vomiting. Those are really severe. That's really severe deficiency. Most people aren't that poor. The main thing are things like muscle cramps, restless leg syndrome, waking up, being unable to fall asleep, waking up frequently, headaches. Those would be the main things.
And so if someone has like maybe one or two or three, four of those, and they suspect they might be deficient, what labs would you typically recommend to check magnesium status?
So the lab you want to ask for, if you talk to your doctor about that and they run a serum magnesium, it will look fine. And the reason for that is that magnesium is stored in our bones. And when it drops too low in the bloodstream, it is pulled out of our bones to be put into our bloodstream so it can do things like keep our heart beating. Okay? So a serum magnesium, which is what's typically run, is not going to tell you if your cellular reserves of magnesium are adequate. For that, you need what's called an RBC, or red blood cell magnesium, because only 1% of magnesium is in the bloodstream. Okay, 60% is in bone, the other 39% is in our cells. But when things get too low in the bloodstream, that 1%, we pull it out of our bones to keep it there. So you need to look into a cell, and the red blood cells are the easiest ones to look into, to see if you have enough magnesium available.
Got it. Thank you for sharing that one. We'll link it to in the description. So let's talk about types of magnesium for a minute. There are so many options available out there. Magnesium Relax, in particular, offers a unique blend of three different forms. So magnesium bisglycinate chelate, dimagnesium malate, and magnesium citrate. Can you maybe speak to all three of these forms and tell us the benefit of each?
Sure. So magnesium bisglycinate is really effectively absorbed and calming because the magnesium ions are held in what's called a chelated structure in which they're bound to two glycine molecules. And that protects the magnesium ions from in the digestive process, okay? They're protected from being bound up with other things like phytates and oxalates and phosphate that's released from phosphate additives in processed foods, all of which can bind to the magnesium and prevent it from being absorbed. So when it's chelated, like it is in magnesium bisglycinate, it's protected against that. And when it gets to the area where it needs to be released, it gets released and then it gets absorbed. And then it's, obviously more helpful to be calming for the nervous system. Magnesium malate is also a chelated magnesium salt in which magnesium is bound to a compound called malic acid. And malic acid is essential for energy production in our cells. In several steps in what's called the Krebs cycle, where we're producing energy, it's even been used to extend energy production in athletes, okay, so they can compete more effectively. I mean, there are studies of cyclists in which cyclists given magnesium malate were able to, the magnesium improved blood flow, the malate improved energy production. They were able to cycle longer and go faster from magnesium malate. So I think it's a really, really helpful form. And then magnesium citrate. The best thing about magnesium citrate is that its magnesium ions will release even with no stomach acid being present. So anybody who's like slightly hypochlorhydric. A lot of people, don't produce quite enough stomach acid. As we age, our ability to produce stomach acid actually declines, and many of us have hypochlorhydria, or we have a Helicobacter pylori infection, or there's many reasons why people produce less stomach acid than they should, or they're taking a PPI, which really shuts down stomach acid. That's not a problem for magnesium citrate. The magnesium ions will release from citrate without any stomach acid being present. And citrate is also alkalinizing, okay, which is very protective for the kidneys. Anybody that has any kind of kidney decline in kidney function or whatever, your doctor will be telling you to increase your consumption of citrus fruit because the citrate in the citrus fruit is alkalinizing, and that is very protective for the kidneys. Oh, and lastly, citrate has antioxidant effects. So those are kind of its contributions. So you've really got a wide range of better absorption, a better blood flow, better energy production, and easily released magnesium ions when you combine these three forms. It's kind of something for everybody.
That's great. No, and I'm glad you summarized that because now I'm kind of making sense of why all three and the benefits around it. And so magnesium doesn't act alone. And like the saying goes, teamwork makes the dream work. At AlgaeCal, we always emphasize the importance of a multi-nutrient approach, and we've made no exception with Magnesium Relax. And so the formulation includes some ideal team players, including vitamin B6, zinc. And so I'd love to give our listeners a better understanding of the synergy between all these nutrients. And so if you can, Laura, can we start with vitamin B6 and understand how it works together with magnesium?
Okay, so the form of B6 in Magnesium Relax is not the form of B6 that you're going to see in most supplements. That form is called pyridoxine, and it is not active. The form of B6 in Magnesium Relax is called pyridoxine 5-phosphate, or P5P. That is the active form of B6 in which it does stuff for us, like get magnesium into our cells. That's one of its primary jobs. Not only does P5P enhance our ability to absorb magnesium, but magnesium also enhances the action of P5P. And that's really important because P5P is itself a cofactor in more than 200 really important enzymes for us that make our metabolism run properly, including some really important ones in relation to our ability to deal with stress, because P5P is required for our ability to synthesize GABA, okay, the inhibitory, calming, relaxing neurotransmitter, and it's also required for serotonin, our feel-good neurotransmitter, and glutathione, our most important antioxidant. So P5P really works with magnesium to do all these things that enable us to be less stressed, sleep better, and relax. The problem is there's two problems. Okay. One problem is B6 or pyridoxine has to be converted into P5P for it to do all these things. And many people can't make that conversion very well. Okay. There are a bunch of single nucleotide polymorphisms or SNPs, variations in how our genes are expressed that interfere with the activity of the enzymes that we need to convert B6 to P5P. It's very common. There's hundreds of these SNPs. Probably at least 25% of us carry at least one of these SNPs that interfere with our ability to convert B6 to P5P.
Just to make sense of it for me and maybe others. So what I'm hearing is that the inactive form, if we see that on the supplement and on a label, the reason why we might not want that is because we actually then have to convert it into the active form. But AlgaeCal in Magnesium Relax already has the active form.
We have the active form. But the worst thing about the inactive form, pyridoxine, is it competitively inhibits the active form. It makes it worse. Not only do we have to convert it, and at least 1 out of 4 of us can't do that very well, but if we manage to produce any, the inactive form will inhibit what we can produce of P5P.
Interesting.
So you really don't want to take something that has pyridoxine in it.
And so why would it be added to other supplements, for example?
Either they're not aware of that problem, okay, which, many supplement companies are not as well educated about the research as AlgaeCal. That's one issue. This is current research. So maybe they haven't kept up with the current research and they don't even know this. I don't know, but it is a fact that the inactive form of B6, pyridoxine, competitively inhibits P5P.
I want to move on to another key player, which is zinc. And so what is the specific role of zinc in this formula, and how does that enhance the benefits of magnesium and B6, especially when we're talking about, mental clarity and balanced mood?
So again, zinc plays a really crucial role in antioxidant protection. It is required for a very important antioxidant that we make in our bodies called superoxide dismutase. And superoxide dismutase is very active in the brain because remember, the brain is really metabolically active and it's producing a lot of reactive oxygen species, even at rest. Okay, the brain is just working away all the time. And we need antioxidants for that. One of them, superoxide dismutase, we can't make without zinc. And 12% of the US population is thought to be at risk for zinc deficiency, particularly elders who are more vulnerable because we produce fewer digestive enzymes in the stomach and small intestine, so we don't absorb, and we have to release the zinc from our food with these enzymes, and we're not producing them anymore. And so we are having less zinc available for absorption from our food. And then a lot of us are vegetarians or vegans, and we're not getting enough zinc because zinc is primarily in animal-based foods. In terms of the Magnesium Relax, why it's important, zinc is essential for our production of melatonin. It's a necessary cofactor for an enzyme called tryptophan hydroxylase, which converts tryptophan to 5-HTP, which then gets converted to serotonin, our feel-good neurotransmitter, which then gets converted to melatonin, that our rest and restore and heal hormone. Zinc supplementation actually increases melatonin production. And also, interestingly, melatonin production promotes zinc absorption. So they really work together as a team. There's a synergistic relationship in which adequate zinc levels are important for optimal melatonin synthesis, and melatonin helps play a role in zinc, maintaining zinc levels.
Absolutely. All right, Laura. So to wrap things up, we have a few rapid fire questions to summarize some key points from today. Are you ready?
I am ready.
All right. So the first one, what are some of the top signs and symptoms of magnesium deficiency?
The most common ones are muscle cramps, restless legs at night, cramping, suddenly getting a cramp in your calf, headaches, fatigue, high blood pressure, problems falling asleep, problems staying asleep, waking up every couple of hours all through the night. That's one that I do. So I'm really looking forward to using Magnesium Relax. Because magnesium plays an important role in our ability to metabolize carbohydrates, a lack of magnesium can also worsen insulin resistance, okay, which can show up as being hungry all the time, being thirsty all the time, frequent urination, and weight gain, unexplained weight gain. So those are all symptoms that tie into magnesium insufficiency.
Okay. How common is magnesium deficiency?
It's very common, currently estimated that 45 to 60% of Americans are magnesium deficient, and not just a little bit. 48% of Americans are consuming less than what's called the EAR for magnesium. And the EAR is an amount that's only thought to maybe meet the needs of half the population.
In a nutshell, how does magnesium support better sleep?
It calms the nervous system. It does it through binding to GABA receptors in several different areas of the brain, causing an increase in GABA. And GABA is an inhibitory neurotransmitter. Its activation slows down firing in the brain. It just calms brain cell activity. And GABA activation promotes the release of melatonin, which induces restorative, restful, healing sleep. And in particular, stage 3 sleep, which is the stage in which the body repairs tissues and builds bone and strengthens the immune system too.
In a nutshell, how does magnesium support better mental clarity and cognitive health?
It does this through its effect on neurotransmitters, neurosignaling, and the blood-brain barrier. Binding to GABA receptors causes an increase in the release of GABA. And magnesium also binds to glutamate, which is our excitatory neurotransmitter. So you end up with a balance. Magnesium doesn't just make you groggy and wiped out. You're still alert. You're still focused, but you're no longer stressed out. You can be calm. You can go about your work and get things done. And magnesium is also essential for nerve signal transmission, because it's required for the active transport of the sodium and potassium ions that make nerve conduction happen. And magnesium protects the integrity of the blood-brain barrier, which protects the brain against toxins and pathogens, and produces a compound called brain-derived neurotrophic factor, or BDNF, which is really needed for brain plasticity and is essential for our ability to learn and remember things.
Why does stress deplete magnesium stores?
So whether stress is physical or physiological, it triggers a cascade of events in the body that result in an increase in our release of cortisol. And that increases our needs for magnesium to counter cortisol's effects, and also causes an increase in our kidneys' elimination of magnesium, the active form, which is called P5P. And that is the form that is present in Magnesium Relax. I recommend taking magnesium with P5P, and you may also see that abbreviated in medical research as PLP. I recommend P5P because that is the form that gets magnesium into our cells where it does its work for us. And many of us are unable to convert pyridoxine, the inactive form, into the active form. So I recommend starting out with the active form.
Why do many people need to supplement with P5P, the active form of vitamin B6?
So there are several reasons for this. At least 25% of us have a genetic inheritance that makes us less capable of converting pyridoxine into P5P. Secondly, at least 25% of us are dealing with non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, okay, a condition in which the liver more rapidly degrades any P5P that we can produce. And thirdly, because the enzymes that convert pyridoxine to P5P require riboflavin as their cofactor. And riboflavin insufficiency is not uncommon, especially in athletes, vegetarians, and vegans. So there are many of us who just can't convert pyridoxine to P5P.
Laura, this has been so incredibly insightful. It's clear that Magnesium Relax is more than just a magnesium supplement. It's a thoughtfully formulated blend designed to address some of the most common challenges that we face today: stress, sleeplessness, and lack of clarity. So thank you so much for shedding some light on the science behind these amazing benefits. And to our listeners, if you're ready to reclaim your calm, clarity, and truly restorative sleep, check out Magnesium Relax. Thanks for tuning in.